Hello and welcome back to your favorite CDH podcast, Mana on the Rocks. It is I, your ever bald host, Joe. Joining me today, I have my co-host, Atlas.
What's up, everybody?
And what is this? We have a guest on Ep.2. That's pretty wild.
Exciting.
Very exciting. We have our resident Mono Green expert, Jake.
I don't know if I'd consider myself Mono Green as much as I am Mono Green-Simic.
What do you mean by
Mono-Green-Simic?
What do you mean by that?
Oh, I just play Yeva Flash, so I'm basically blue-green, even if it is Mono Green.
Playing.
I guess, yeah.
It's the control in Mono Green.
But you can't counter spells, so is it really control?
You don't need to counter spells to control the game.
Well, that's not true.
I think you could agree, Atlas, that countering spells makes it very easy to control the game, but you don't need to. There are many other ways to control the game.
Sure, I guess I just like to play the game on easy mode. You put that thing on the stack, and I give me 15 seconds, and I will decide if I want to respond or not.
Oh, and there's no way in hell that Yeva is a control list. It is simply mid-range, a little bit of a parasite, but it wins.
Parasite, eh?
Explain parasitic for people who aren't familiar with that term.
Parasitic deck basically takes and uses the resources of other decks to help control the board, and then tries to win after forcing the other boards to battle each other more than they are actually interacting.
Okay.
Some builds of Yeva can really do that. Other, like mine, actually interact with the board a little more.
You were just telling us before we started recording. You were telling us about this new card you're pushing. Maybe not really new, but it's a card you're pushing that a lot of the Evolists that you've seen aren't playing, and you're really high on it right now.
Well, I mean, Vines of Vastwood is just such a good card. It goes from anywhere of just protecting key combo pieces to interacting with the board, stopping whether it's Godo Helm, Curiosity, or Saw in Half dual caster mage combos. It stops so much and helps so much in the interim, just protecting stuff.
Yeah,
I think I remember the first time that you put a Vines of Vastwood on the stack. I think you were stopping. You like targeted at someone else's thing, and like, wait, hold on, this card does that? That's wild. Because for a while I was just like, yeah, Vines of Vastwood, yeah, it's whatever. It's another like creature protection piece. And then I read it, I'm like, oh, this is, you can put it on any creature,
Yeah.
and it stops both spells and abilities. And if you want to pay the extra green, you also pump the creature, which is, it has so much utility to it. I personally like the card. If I didn't have like a million other cards I'd rather play in Calamax, it would probably make the list somewhere. I don't know, it'd probably be like the 105th card I'd put in there.
I'm not gonna lie, I think one of the happiest times I've ever seen you was when I was trying to combo off with like a dual caster combo, and and I'm taking all these extra steps to get in there to like make sure that I have a counterspell first, and you're like, what are you waiting for? Just go for it. And I was like, well, I'm playing around the fact that you might have Vines of Vastwood in your hand. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, Vines of Vastwood is just so versatile, whether it's interacting with the board, saving a stacks piece that someone else controls that's helping you just develop your own board through it. Like, I don't mind Rule of Law. I'm casting a spell on everyone's turn, so I'll protect your Archon of Emeria if it means that the turbo player isn't winning. And so...
Protecting other people's stacks pieces? What is this?
Yeah.
Who would do such a thing?
So it's really such a good card because it helps with step 1 of CDH, not losing, but it also helps with step 2 of winning the game when you're protecting your own win.
Yeah, so that I guess that kind of segues into the overall topic of conversation that I've brought you to here today, which is the 2 steps of CDH. Not necessarily hard and fast rules, I'd say, but like general guiding principles. One of the things that some of our friends talked to us about, like after we released last week's episode, was like, oh yeah, Thorkel, cut the card, and then one of our friends was like, oh yeah, then I just won with Thorkel 2 times in a row. Like it's
Okay,
not really hard and fast.
I have to clarify. I got some flack after that last episode. I do not think it is bad.
No,
it is a very good win condition. I think it's overrated.
Yeah, no, like repeatedly we said like, no, these are good cards. It's just our conversation was mostly on like there is other things that you can do and still be effective and not be solely relying on Thoracle. Um, just
Absolutely.
just kind of like we're none of what we say is like anything apart from just like our crazy opinions.
That's
I
why
just
Cloud Shift is good.
that's
a crazy opinion.
That's a crazy opinion and debatable at the very best. But yeah, so like, general guiding principles, the 2 steps of CDH. Jake, you said they were what again?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm gonna have to correct you. Step 1 is a pretty hard and fast rule of CDH. Step 1, don't lose.
What if I have the combo?
What if you have the combo?
What if I had the combo?
The combo. Still, step 1, don't lose.
But what if I want? But what if I can win right now though?
But so you're wanting to get to step 2 already. But step 1 of CDH, you gotta live, because if you lose the game first, you're not gonna win the game. It's quite simple, really, but when you think about it, it gets complex.
I think one of the best ways to look at that I just heard it phrased this way the other day. I don't remember exactly who was talking about it. I think I was watching a YouTube video, and it might have been the Mind Sculptors, might have been somebody else. Anyways, I was listening to somebody's content, and they were talking about how a lot of the game boils down to, in order to prevent yourself from losing, visualizing the board state after whatever game action that you're about to take or your opponent is about to take. And then you have to make sure that after those game actions have been completed, if they get stopped, because obviously everyone's trying to win the game, that's like the general like mentality going in is I'm playing to win.
That's rule 1.
That the general mentality of the game is like we're gonna play and we want to win the game, right? But we'll get into like mentality versus like assessing game actions later. But more or less, you have to look past the immediate like, oh, I'm gonna win the game with this Thoracle combo on turn 2. Okay, if I get stopped, where does that leave me? Where does that leave my opponents? And that relates to step 1, as at least as we see it, is don't lose the game. Then you can move into step 2, which is I'm going to take my game actions to win the game.
Yeah, I think nothing more encapsulates that whole idea of like envisioning what happens after game action as like an Eldritch Evolution chord finale style of effect. Like given whatever deck you're up against, I'll use Rocco as an example. That deck has like 3 to 4 main hits that you need to be concerned about, depending on what X's or what the sack creature is in Eldritch's case. Are they a deck that you would consider that they would be on like Blood Moon? How does Blood Moon affect me? If they decide to get Oof, how bent am I on Oof? Is a GA coming down? Is there anything that I need to act on to get GA off the battlefield, or like to stop GA from like protecting a win on board, or I don't know, some other random stacks piece that's in the brew. Though that's always been that's been a big level up moment for me personally. Is like, okay, I don't know necessarily what you're getting, but here's like the quick checklist of like what happens if each of these come down. Like where does that leave me? Where does that leave the table? Kind of deal.
Oh, definitely. I think that's and Eldritch is another really good one, because even if you're not assessing for the entire table, everybody has to assess, or at least should be assessing, what happens to me if this doesn't work. So Eldritch, once again, great example. If you have a Mana Dork and like a Drannith Magistrate on board, and you're looking for a 3 cost, but you need an extra mana to follow up afterwards, versus like maybe you want to make sure the stack space is around, or maybe you want the 4 cost, so you want to sacrifice your Drannith Magistrate. But if that Drannith Magistrate leaves and your 4 cost doesn't come into play, so you don't end up winning the game, where does that leave you? Like, what did your Drannith disappearing just unlock? Do we know that somebody tutored for Breach? Do we see a Winota with 3 enablers across the board just waiting to slam their commander? Like, how bad is it when I don't succeed in my win attempt? That's I think more or less what we're getting at with this whole idea of step 1, is just looking forwards and making sure that you aren't going to be losing by trying to win the game. I think that's at least where I take it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Go for it.
With step 1, you are really focusing on trying to not lose the game by whether it's game actions you're taking or game actions your opponents are taking. and is looking forward. A lot of people who are new to CDH, they'll fall into a pitfall of developing their board but not holding up enough interaction. And so that balance between developing your board enough to get ahead while still holding up enough interaction that you don't lose is that dangerous balance you got to learn how to strike while playing CDH.
And that's hard. I mean, and that's a lesson that you've learned. Even just I've seen you improve a lot just playing Yeva, like since like a year or two ago when we started playing together. I've seen you adapt a lot, because at first when we would be playing, and you can testify to your experiences here, but you would just like vomit all your stuff out, like end step right before your turn, or maybe on somebody's turn and there's another one after, and then all of a sudden you get blown out by a dress down or a toxic deluge or somebody's like rift or something like that, and it leaves you with nowhere to go, right?
Yeah, whether it's like casting a Seedborn with 5 mana and no mana available on that hope I just get one more untap only for it to be killed on my instepped or countered. It's that delicate balance of it
That's
getting.
That's a Thrasios player's nightmare. It's like, okay, I'm tapping out. I don't have the force. Let's hope I see an untap step, because if I don't, I just throw.
Come on, guys. You gotta let the Seedborn resolve one untap, then you kill it, because that lets the control player be still in the game. It's how you step one, don't lose.
Well, I mean, there's definitely some merit to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
I was gonna say there's some merit to that. I definitely try to I try to when I'm playing my game sometimes, because I'm big main Kenrith player over here. But yeah, I played control Kenrith, and so there'll be times where someone's like, this was one of the biggest problems I faced when I started with the lists. I would be playing Kenrith, and people are like, oh, we gotta kill that. That's an advantage engine. And just establishing the idea ahead of time, like before a game starts, I will sit down a lot of times now and just start by saying, okay, so I'm playing a much slower version of Kenrith than you might think I'm on. I don't play Adnaz, Breach, blah, 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 blah. Give that whole spiel. But then say, if I establish Kenrith, it's going to be as a control piece. I can use it to enable your creatures to have haste. I can use it to pump your creatures to establish combat tricks, and it kills Thoracle players. So unless you are a Thoracle player and trying to win, this also kills the other Thoracle players. You should not be trying to remove Kenrith. And I love that play, because really similar to what Jake was saying with the Seabra Muse, is then someone's like, oh, I'm going to go try to remove this Kenrith. And I'm like, okay, guys, they're trying to remove my Kenrith. Obviously, they're a Thoracle deck, and they're trying to Thoracle now. So let's work together to save my Kenrith. And that works a lot more than you think.
My favorite play whenever you have a Kenrith out is, if there's a Gilded Drake out, I just find my Phantasmal Image and just Drake your Kenrith. You don't have it, but I get the Kenrith.
Yeah, that honestly, and like, what can I say to that? It's like, okay, well, it is in play. It does stop the Thoracle players. Like, there's nothing I can say to, like, please don't let him have my Kenrith. Like, please.
Yeah, no, and the not losing part, I think, is something that I still kind of struggle with. I don't know. I'm a Rakdos player at heart, even though I don't play traditional Rakdos. But it's even still, like, the way Chainer is constructed is in such a way that it's almost mid range, not necessarily turbo. Like, I know the points at which I need to hold up interaction or anything like that. Like, I'm currently on Calamax. Like, the amount of times that Calamax doesn't resolve or gets put onto the stack unless I'm able to do something else, or at the very least protect him, because man, people love stealing the dinosaur. They love the dinosaur.
Oh man, I do love draking me a dinosaur.
Yeah, the fucking Drake, dude. Worst. Yeah, God, Gilded Drake is such a
fair and balanced magic card.
No, I genuinely do think that it's like pretty fair for what it is. Like, it's very pushed. I would say there hasn't been anything that is quite like it, but in terms of like removal options, like, it is bar none one of the best pieces of removal. Even if it is mostly stuck at sorcery speed. Like, I guess you can have like some tricks or whatever to get it out instantly.
Sorcery speed Drakes, who plays those?
Well, non-Kenrith players. But you get my gist. Like, it's so many times,
absolutely.
like, getting rid of a commander, unless there is a Drannith on the battlefield to lock it out. Someone else's commander is so much more valuable when they just do not have access to it in any way, shape, or form. So your Drannith effects, like even like some of the Frogify effects. I don't know, the one, or what's the one that I saw?
Lignify and things, right?
Yeah, like Lignify,
Kenrith's transformation.
Elking. Kenrith's
Yeah,
transformation,
oh,
like
the mono green player would know that.
absolutely. Like all of those types of removal are it's so good at just hard stopping a lot of the decks. It's so good at stopping any form of like commander based advantage. Not necessarily like Timnas and stuff like that, but like your Winotas, your Yurikos of the world. You know, those are like the easiest two to like kind of
Oh my
pluck out of thin
god,
air.
I hate those cards so much. Talk about pushed. Eureka less so, but Winota, dude.
What a great card that will continue to see infinite support until it never leaves the format ever.
Yep.
Want to
Yeah.
know what's
The
really
only thing,
crazy?
the only
Yep.
what's crazy?
Well, with Winota, if you look at what its ability does, it you have your little boys that just find stacks pieces and advantage engines. And so it finds stacks pieces and win cons. So it really is hitting step 1 and 2 at the same time with each combat. It's
Yes.
not
Step
losing and
3.
winning the game.
Step
Step-
3, do both.
Step
Yeah.
3, be Winota.
Oh my god. I was playing
Yeah.
a game earlier today actually against a Winota deck, and it came down to literally exactly that. It's that I had a Drannith Magistrate on the field, and that is the only reason I won that game. But the whole time, even with that, the whole time I felt that my entire game plan was do not lose the game. Like, do not die to combat damage is my entire that's all I'm trying to accomplish right now, because they resolved a Rick and like 6 humans or something. It was like, I need to find a removal spell, because if I win the game right now, it doesn't matter because I can't combo through every stack piece that's currently on the field.
Dear Lord, oh god, that's another card, man. Like that gets to play some wild stuff.
Yeah,
Like, some absolutely redonkulous hits and enablers in the deck, and like the cards in the pool of cards for Winota just get better and better with nearly every single set. It's
I can't wait
ridiculous.
until the set that releases a commander that finally makes Winota like not a thing anymore. The only thing that makes me sad about that is it's just going to be so much better than Winota in those same colors.
No, I don't want that. That's a hellscape. Like I would notice already. Like I think it's pretty explored that Winota is like the second or third best commander and the second or third best thing you could be doing in the format. Like bar none.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like I don't want to know what better power crept Winota is. That's a hellscape scenario right there.
I don't disagree with that. I just wish that RC, if you're listening, my prayer is please remove Winota from the format.
Hey, RC, give me Recurring Nightmare and Primetime, please.
Hey, RC, give me Biorhythm and Mono Green
You have
Prophet of
Biorhythm.
Crufix.
You have Biorhythm.
Oh wait, I have both of
You have
those in
Biorhythm.
Yeva. I do both of those in Yeva anyways, so never mind. I'm fine.
Exactly.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I do think
but
that
so I mentioned earlier this whole idea of mentality versus like assessing your game actions. I kind of wanted to come back to that. Is that so? People will talk about. So I've brought up this like step 1, step 2 idea to people a couple times before, who are outside of our group, and they're like, "Oh, well, that's a little weird. Like, why aren't you playing to win? Like, you're just playing to not lose." And then that leads to the whole discussion of like people who approach games with mentalities of I'm playing to win versus I'm playing to not lose, and like how that can affect your mental and is measurably attributable towards win percentages over a period of time, because they've done like studies for this psychologically, right? So I was curious, what do you guys think? Like, how does step 1? Because I know my answer. How does step 1 and step 2? How does that play into the whole idea of like the mentality you're approaching a game with, whether it's to not lose or whether it's to win?
I mean, I think step 2 follows step 1 pretty clearly. I think especially in a long drawn out like data session, like the mentality of trying to be like every game, no, I'm gonna try and win, like that's and coming up short 75% of the time on average, like just that amount of mental toll is huge. Like you are going to get defeated and burnt out so fast. Not that that's anything wrong with deciding to take a break or whatever if you are feeling burnt out, but like if you are just playing to win, you are upset that you're not winning when you feel like you should be winning. That is a mentality thing. And I think if you're able to keep your mental in check better than your other opponents, you're going to be able to achieve step 2 by doing step 1.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Jake, did you have any thoughts on that?
I think especially when you look at the games you're playing, and if you look, everyone take a moment, reflect on your games and your best games. They're always ones that are either hard fought or anything like that. Sure, it's nice when you get the nuts and you go off on turn one uncontested, but really, if the ones you enjoy the most
SCEDH, baby!
are the best ones, the most fulfilling ones are truly the ones that are hard fought. Someone else tries to win, you try to win on top, and overall you pull through eventually. And I think that's really kind of indicative that you want the adversity, and step one of not losing really is kind of that mindset of, hey, I don't have to win right now for this to be a good game and for me to take good actions. And sometimes if you play 100% right, you still might lose. And so kind of having that mindset of, hey, trying to not lose, doing everything I can to not lose, and then trying to win when the window opens, I think that really can be helpful for that mindset.
Oh yeah, I mean, like especially like the whole like playing as well as you can. I mean, Atlas and I can both personally attest to that. Yeah, uh, Atlas in the last major, you didn't drop a game, but you only won one game.
Oh man, that was so tough. I was literally one turn from winning, uh, and getting into the top four, and then I just couldn't lock it. Oh, that was frustrating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fact that you played over the course of four rounds of Swiss, you didn't drop a single game. You tied 3-1-1. Like that for the most part is a winning record, because I think for the most part draws are largely are largely wins, or they're closer to wins than losses. In my eyes at least. Like it turn time in CDH comes down to the wire so much so, and turn order, especially starting into turns, matters incredibly much so. The last major tournament that I participated in, I think I went 1-0-1-1-2, I think. Played my ass off that entire day. I feel like there was very little mistakes that I made, besides not winning the game. But
Yeah, why didn't you do that? Simple.
I was really I really didn't feel like it, honestly. I
Not this time.
Not this time.
Too
Not for me.
focused on
No,
step
I
one,
just-
he didn't think about step two.
Too
And then he
focused
failed
on
on step one.
Step two never came. Yeah. But like even still, like I still look back at that day and think, no, like I didn't have like the greatest winning record. I didn't make it to, the finals table or top cut or whatever, but like I still walked away knowing that I played the best that I possibly could. And despite losing, I think once, like I really lose, or well, I did really lose, but like that mentality of, I did what I could,
Yeah.
There's only so much that you can do. There's only so much of step one you can do, that sometimes step two never shows up.
Easier to recover your mental too, I would imagine.
100%. 100%. That at least to me, like that whole like mentality shift of not playing to win necessarily, but playing to not lose. Like I said earlier, it's so much for your mental. How many times I don't do either of you ever tried to do anything competitive in another like game or whatever?
I can't say that I really have.
Or
But
maybe not even like competitive, but just like really devoted, like you really want to like improve and get better, like winning is part of the game for you.
sure, yeah, I've done that a couple times. I used to do like fencing and stuff, and that's definitely something that
That
like
doesn't surprise me. That does not surprise me at all.
now I feel attacked.
You could have said anything else. I went, oh, that's interesting. You said fencing. Went, that makes too much sense,
Bro, it was that or basketball, and I was like, well, basketball.
I would have loved to see you. I would have loved to see you in the court. Oh my god.
No, I'm short and I'm slow, so I prefer to use my brain and hit people with a sword.
Continue.
Oh,
Sorry.
I was just no. I was just gonna say. So like, I get that a little bit. I can relate to that idea of like, if you're just pushing yourself all the time to like try and win like back to back to back to back, it gets exhausting.
No,
Yeah,
I absolutely go for it, Jake. Yeah.
in my high school wrestling career, I don't know if I got a single win, but it's definitely like being able to watch your own growth in something, even if you're not winning and you're kind of fighting to, even if it's like, oh, wrestling, fight to not get pinned, fight to not lose. Even if you lose but you didn't get pinned, it's an accomplishment, or you've gotten better and you didn't fold as easily as you used to. And so fighting for that growth and looking at it and really appreciating is a big step.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
then,
no, go for it.
so I was just gonna say, so then what about those studies and whatnot that say people who approach games with a I'm not going to lose mentality versus like an I'm gonna try and win mentality? Like what? And we can see it's measurable that there's like you will win fewer games if you approach with an I'm not going to lose mentality. What do you say to those people?
I think
I'm sorry. Can you
I think
repeat
the
the
wording
question?
on that is very different than kind of our step one, step two philosophy, because when I hear I'm not going to lose, that's less of try not to lose, and it's less of try to fight the best fight you can, try to not lose, and more of I'm going to do this, blah blah blah. This is going to happen, and then you have the other side, which is the I'm going to try to win, is closer to me to our step one of don't lose at first and just try as best you can. That growth mindset, try everything.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. I think, yeah, I think that you're totally right. I think it's like as long as you're approaching with the idea that you are in this game because you want to be victorious. Like whether how you approach that is it's just a little bit different. Like you're approaching it with more of a slow and steady. Like I'm gonna do what I can to make sure that I get set up to win versus like I'm going in. I'm just gonna try and blitz it, drop my hand on turn one, and cast Nas on turn two like Rogsai.
Yeah, so hmm. It's almost like you approach, if you flip it, you're approaching it almost with a cocky sort of attitude. I don't know. I feel like it's greater rewards, I guess, if you really care about it, but like the spoils are so much greater, and at the end of the day, like we like shiny cardboard. Like I don't know about you guys, but I'm not trying to ruin my mental over a couple of games of shiny wizard cardboard, right? Like I and so much like I've had like small competitive streaks, and a lot of the time I get so focused on like trying to win, trying to improve. This has been the one time that I've been playing something competitively where the mindset is no, let's just try and do what I can, and the chips are gonna fall where they fall. It's a very water, very zen like idea, of just like, well, if I can at the very least stop what my opponents are doing, that's going to ultimately give me the better chance of me being able to put my win out there. And if I get stopped, then like I get stopped. But if you find that window right and you execute it as well as you can and still got stopped, well, I mean, I don't know. I still feel like that's a pretty good game. It's at the very least memorable.
Yeah,
For sure.
I think I think that as long as you're presenting a win at some point during the game, even if it gets stuffed, like even if it gets stuffed, that's just your opponent's fulfilling step one, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think as long as everyone, or at least 50% of the table, is able to present the opportunity to win, I think that can usually translate to a pretty good game. So with that, then what about decks who like it that's their whole thing is we're gonna go turbo, we're gonna go fast. I mentioned wrong side, like we are trying to win. How does that translate to the whole step one, step two mentality?
That's actually a point I kind of want to
You
talk
got Force of
about.
Will in hand?
The step one, step two, you actually have decks that are better built around one of the steps. If you just think about the archetypal trio, you got control, aggro, and mid range. So if you think it's about step one, step two, control and aggro, you can kind of see where they fall on those steps. Control, you don't lose until you can win. Aggro, you just try to win as fast as possible. Mid range is where you see a lot of, I think, the CEDH meta nowadays, where you're trying to not lose for a little bit until you outvalue and win. So there's definitely some balance to the decks where they're better at one thing. So aggro decks, turbo decks, they're trying to win fast, but they still have to not lose. And in a sense, winning faster than your opponents is fulfilling step one and not losing.
Yeah, I mean, a good defense is the greatest offense, right? Or however that saying goes. I don't know. I just butchered it. It doesn't
It
doesn't
goes both ways. I've heard
it doesn't. Yeah,
best defense is a good offense, best offense is a good defense. Like
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, it's that control versus aggro. A good offense where you win before anyone else can attempt anything or develop a board to stop you. That's a good defense. You're
Hmm.
defended by because you're Thoracling on turn one. No one has any advantage. No one has the force of will. But a good defense where you're stopping, you're controlling the board, whether it's stacks or just control and magic, you're going to outvalue your opponents eventually, or you're going to get to a point where they're so far down that you can just present the win.
Mm-hmm. I think when it comes to that, like CEH is mid-range the game. Like I think no matter which way you want to slice any deck in the meta, even like Rogside to some degree, like you have to have some form of grind in your build. Otherwise, you're going to die to the person who resolved a Rhystic Study and you couldn't find yours. Or like I guess maybe Rhystic Study isn't a good example just because any blue deck is playing Rhystic Study. I don't know. Pick a draw engine, a pet draw engine of yours, like
Mystical
that fits.
War.
Yeah, well, besides that, that's
Black
that's
market
Rhystic Study.
connections.
Exactly. Like those tools that provide you the ability to go long, just because stacks is so effective in Commander as a whole. I mean, if you're a Tymna deck and you're locked out of your commander by Draenei Magistrate, you need to have some other way of being able to find your answer, find your win, or find other ways to start snowballing your advantage to get further. Um, yeah, sorry, I just kind of like saw a tangent, and went on it. I don't know what we were just talking about before.
I
I
mean,
just
yeah, no,
went
that's
on.
no, that's a really good point. But also sometimes, like, the CEDH is a mid-range game for the most part, but there are obviously exceptions, such as control decks and stacks decks that I think stacks decks have heavily fallen out, at least of our local meta, and I think just in general because they get outvalued by the mid-range decks.
Stacks is on the rise, baby. What are you talking about?
I have seen a lot more stacks recently.
But have you seen them doing well?
It's not even rule of law.
I'm not gonna lie to you.
It's
I'm not red green stacks. That's where it's at. I have dropped a game in the past week.
no.
Yeah,
like,
but
it's
you
not
haven't
even,
played
like,
against Yeva that would just parasite off of your control. So, but
that's true. No, like our meta specifically,
Obviously-
it's not. It's different stacks. It's harder stacks.
yeah, no, the meta is shifting, and it's all about being able to stop your opponents from winning with the stacks while also developing your board to that win. Everything you kind of got to do both. And if you're not doing both, you got to do one really hard. Whether it's staxing out and locking everyone down until you can beat them to death with Rurik Thar, or it's Thorkling on turn one because you had the nuts, or doing a Nala combo. It's you got to either go hard on one or you got to play both.
The term that I've seen popping up kind of recently is light stacks, which I actually really like. I think it's like you're light on the stacks, and they're mostly like asymmetrical pieces like Draenei Magistrate that have high impact on the game, easy to cast. So they're like lighter pieces in a variety of ways, and you aren't very heavy onto that theme. But those decks seem to be doing really well right now. You resolve a Draenei Magistrate and a Mayhem Devil, baby, you're winning.
Yeah, you're in a very good position. I think a lot of the deck building philosophy has changed to, well, if we can afford to play these pieces, like even symmetrical pieces, like Calmax, for example, I'm running Curse Totem because I run literally 4-5 technically activated abilities in the entire deck. They're all dorks. I can lose my dork to shut someone off of, I don't know, Kenrith activations
Please stop.
or like whatever activations. It's an easy way to kill a mono green player. That's for damn sure.
That is for sure. Yeah.
But at the same
Yeah,
time, like
because
I
your
don't.
dino would be bigger than my Yeva, sadly.
It will be. It will be. Yeah. No, especially. I think we saw a lot of that shift post Punt City. With what's his faces. I don't care to remember off the top of my head. No ill will. Yeah, the blue farm list. No ill will against the guy. Just I don't. I'm not remembering the name right now. I saw a lot of discussion about including Draenei Magistrate in that list, and for a while it's just like, well, why would you not play that card? Like
Bosch roll, right?
Bosch and roll, that's the name.
Yeah. Why would you not play that? I think when you started to put Draenei Magistrate in your list, Atlas, one of our players was like, well, we were considering I think we were picking between Draenei Magistrate and some other card that we were on the fence about. And the decision was, well, are you going to keep the hand that has the Draenei Magistrate, or are you going to keep the hand that has the other card in it? And we all kind of went, well, the Draenei Magistrate, obviously.
There's the answer.
Yeah, and it's like, well, there you go. So there's a lot more emphasis on playing those cards that just are able to hard shut down your opponents, at the very least, more than you.
Man, turn 1 or 2 Drannith Magistrates, literally, they will die that turn cycle, or they will never leave the game. I'm convinced.
Oh god, it's the same thing with Grafdigger's Cage. Holy shit! Have
Yeah,
I
you
been
resolve
seeing
that shit early, it's dying immediately because someone really, really doesn't want it there, or everyone else is too scared to remove it for fear of what they'll unlock, and they're not prepared to deal with it, and then they just stick around for the entire game.
Yeah, because it'll either it sticks around for 2 turn cycles, and then you go, well, shit, now I can't get rid of it, even though I just found my Abrade or my Nature's Claim or whatever.
Someone else
Like I
is
can't,
set up.
like someone else is waiting for that to go.
Yep, that's the worst. I I put a Grafdigger's Cage into play. I was playing Rourke though because that deck is saucy. But I put that into play on like I don't know turn 2 or something last week, and um, everybody wanted it dead. But like by the point where people had removal spells for it, it was exactly that. It's like, well, if I remove it now, then I'm going to be passing into an Eldritch Evolution we know they have in hand, or I'm gonna let like I forget what the graveyard list was. There was somebody who was doing reanimation stuff. And they're like, or we let them pull their threats out of the graveyard. So I guess it's better to just like sit here and do nothing, and then maybe we won't lose.
Yeah, but you play into the person you're playing into your step 2, because your whole thing was like, yeah, you're not going to be able to deal with this Grafdigger's Cage. I'm going to work Thar.
Yeah. Hey, all I'm doing is playing a 6/6 who asks you kindly. He doesn't stop you. He just asks you not to cast non-creature spells.
He says don't cast non-creatures.
No, you're allowed to. He just says please don't. And if you decide that it's for the good of the order, you may.
I guess, yeah. I don't know.
I do like that point of stacks pieces just staying around because people are scared of letting other people removing it for another person, and it brings up that point of you never remove a stacks piece that's holding back the whole table unless you're sure you can win. You gotta not lose first, and then you try to win. And even then, you gotta consider the situation that someone might have a force of will. So should you even remove the stacks piece?
I feel like unless you're literally casting Cyclonic Rift, it's so like
There's March and Dress Down.
There's March and Dress Down. True. I feel so uneasy anytime I go to like remove a stacks piece unless I have like the absolute nuttiest of nuts in hands, right? It just on the off chance that I get stopped, it's so disastrous for the person sitting to my left. It's so disastrous.
Well, that's because you're like good foresight. You're saying, oh, well, if this game action doesn't go through, like going back to step 1, if this game action doesn't go through, where does that leave me and to some extent the rest of the table in terms of like how bad is it? Are we going to lose to somebody else?
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people I've had to play against where it's like, okay, this card, I realize it like shuts off your tutor or whatever. Please do not kill it, because if you kill this, you kill us. And they're like, I can't win with that card. Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy, Toxic Delusion past the turn. And I'm like, oh my god, please just stop.
I mean, just the other day, I had a Caustic Caterpillar on the board, and we had a Sensei's Top like combo deck that was to my left.
That was a good game.
I wanted to advance my board because I drew a Maze of Ith. I had a Ley Weaver in hand. I only had 4 mana, but a Caustic Caterpillar on the board. And I'm like, I'm gonna cast this Ley Weaver, and Atlas is just like, Jake, stop. One moment. Are you sure you want to do that? Like, they have this, and this, and they might try to combo. And I'm like, oh, you're right. So I thought about it. I looked at the Force of Vigor in my hand and said, I can develop my board, try and do my step 2 plan, while still holding up step 1 and not lose. And so,
hidden information, the bane of my existence.
So it's that, trying to make sure you're not losing and you're using all your pieces correctly, while also trying to step 2 and trying to move towards your win when you can.
Really, yeah, good balancing act there for sure, though, because, yeah, I remember that game, and you were like, do this, and in my head I'm going, oh my god, we're dead, because I really didn't have anything at that point, and thank god you were sitting on that Force of Vigor as, like, a backup plan, but, yeah. But that game actually, that provides another really good lesson that we can actually take away from this, because in that same game, we're talking about the the Kaikar player who's trying to do a top combo. So it was I had a Mystic Remora in play, and they had dealt with the Grafdigger's Cage. They had dealt with the Caustic Caterpillar. They didn't know you had the Force. I didn't know you had the Force.
Dear Lord.
Yeah, it was wild, dude. They were so far ahead. They had tutored for an Underworld Breach, so just so they would be able to flashback their removal spell. It was wild, and but they forgot to account for the Mystic Remora, and so they start doing their top combo, and like 2 casts in, I'm like, okay, you know that I was like, trigger, draw a card, trigger, draw a card. And they're like, okay, what's letting you draw these cards? I was like, this Mystic Remora, and they're like, oh, I can just pay 1 for that, right? And I was like, no, this is the one where you have to pay 4. And they're like, oh, okay. And so they're newer to the format, I guess, but like either way, it was one of those things where it's like please stop trying to combo here, because even though I'm drawing a bunch of cards and I will likely be able to stop you, it's like a 50-50 between who draws more counter magic first, right? So please stop. And this guy just kept going for it. And Jake can attest, I was sitting there going, please, I'm the person you're feeding. Please stop, because I don't think you're going to like the outcome, and I really don't want to take the gamble.
Yeah,
True.
it was definitely a thing of just like his mindset was, I got a full commit. I'm either winning now or I'm missing my window. And we were both saying, hey, you've got more chances. Like, wait for the fish to die. You're not guaranteed. So try to not lose first, and then you can try to win later.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the odds that you're gonna win through a fish are realistically, like, they're not the worst in the world. But it's not like he was playing Elsha top. You can't go over the top of interaction, so it's not amazing. So
Kaikar
yeah,
is what colors again?
Kaikar is Jeskai, just like Elsha.
Okay.
He's a 3/3 flying bird wizard or something along those lines. At any rate, anytime you cast a non-creature spell, you make a 1/1 flying white spirit, and
Oh, and
Kaikar has
sack,
sacks to make a red.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
I guess
top enabler.
It's
Yeah,
your cost reducer for top.
Yeah.
True. I guess at a certain point you just kind of gamble and just like try and find silence as soon as possible. You're just like, I just got to keep going until I find this, and then I can pretty much get there.
Yeah. But like at the same time, it's like that whole idea of like the fish can't be alive forever. At some point, it has to die, or somebody's going to try and remove it, or like you will find a cyclonic rift or a silence or something. Like, just take a little more time, be a little more patient, and that's one of my biggest gripes about playing with people who play like quote unquote turbo strategies. Is they're like balls to the wall. Like, I have no regard for what will happen after I attempt my win, because I'm going to either win fast or lose. And sometimes your hand lends itself to that, but also sometimes you just like play into a Mystic Remora and a fish and let somebody untap with 52 cards in their hand and like lose the game.
Yeah, and at which point like you were never going to win anyway, so your resources are better spent just holding it back.
Yeah, just chill. As long as you're alive, there's a chance you can win the game. I don't care what the situation is. As long as you have not lost already, there is always a shot that you can make it back. Whether it's beat the person to death with a 1/1 or you'll find your combo. Just wait. Just chill. Breathe.
Yeah, the top of the deck is always live in CDH. More so in any that's true for literally any card game. Like, everyone knows the old adage, better be lucky than good. But especially in CDH, just with the amount of tutor density and just raw power of a lot of cards and interplayability between all of your pieces in a given deck, like the next few cards you draw or that next untap step could be massive for you if given the right opportunity. I play our last weekly, I played a game. I was staring down a whole board of just nonsense. I was matched up against 2 people on Casual Brews, and I draw Cinderclasm, and I have Dinosaur out with a tapper. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't need to go to combat, and I like tanked for like 3 minutes just doing all of the combat math. And my conclusion was, I don't need to attack right now, because it's not my job to attack, because if I attack, that opens up my seat 2 to swing into me, and then my seat 3 to swing into them, and ultimately seat 3 will come out on top, and me just throwing the game. Turned out, seat 2 decided to go on the aggressive in one of the worst combats I've seen, but they were a new player. Not to disparage them, but like I walked them through. I asked them, like, are you sure you want to do this? Do you think this is a good idea? Like, this is my board state. This is their board state. Like, are you sure you want to go through with this? And they're like, yes, I want to go through this. I'm like, okay, so be it. I ate like most of their board. I wasn't able to board wipe because they just had a regular ass board wipe in hand. I'm like, well, I guess I just hold on to this. I lost that game because our Cedh 3 resolved the 5/5 flyer and beat us
Dude,
to death.
sometimes you just eat it to a Baneslayer Angel if there's nothing you can do.
It's rough, but the whole point of that is like I recognize that like it wasn't my time to act. Like I was acting on instant speed, so it didn't really matter. I didn't need to act on my turn. There was no incentive for me to do that on my turn. You know, there's always going to be a better opportunity later, especially when you can do something at instant speed.
Bro,
I think also like
brief aside on that.
Yeah.
How many times has somebody gone, I'm gonna play this land. I'm gonna cast Brainstorm. And you just look at them going, why? Like, it's an instant. You can do that at the end step right before your turn to make sure your draw is fixed correctly. Or like Mystical Tutor on their main phase or something. It's like, okay, I'll bash my Ragavan and hit you. Like, oh my god. If it's instant, play it at instant speed.
Dude,
please.
I love playing spells at instant speed. Winning at instant speed is even better.
I also like winning instant speed. Chord lines are crazy.
Chord lines do go hard. And Jake, to your point, yeah, Yeva giving all your green spells flash and just win over the top. So good.
It's
so
just
good.
creatures, right?
Yeah,
Green
yeah,
creatures,
green
green creatures.
Green creatures.
Okay, that's
So-
creatures anyways.
I can flash out my Priest of Titania on instep and give it pseudo haste because it doesn't sit on the turn or on the board for a whole turn cycle. And
Don't give
then-
him the chance to toxic you.
yeah, flash out a win con and oh, my favorite thing is I don't need a counter spell. I just need to be able to kill you before you resolve your win, whether that's
Yeah.
instant speed or with a 4/4.
Yeah, yeah, true. Oh my god. Yeah,
Or like-
I've started approaching crafting deck building a lot more to that, where you don't need to play as much interaction or removal as you do just good cards if you're able to win in response to somebody else's win attempt. Because in most cases, you'll be able to suss out, in my experience at least, you'll be able to suss out who has counter magic and who, or like some variety of interaction after the first rotation of priority. After somebody goes to, we'll take the most compact win condition, Thoracle. After somebody goes, like, cast Thoracle, and it resolves, and then they put the trigger on the stack and cast their constant effect, and then you watch everybody, and they're like, oh yeah, pass priority, pass priority, pass priority. There's still going to be another chance for you to respond before the win, and, like, assuming you're not playing Stifle, you can wait for somebody else to, like, show a Stifle or an Endurance or something in response to the Thoracle trigger after the library's exiled. But if nobody does, that's your go ahead, like, your signal, okay, I'm golden, I'm gonna go try and win in response. And that is just so satisfying because they're just not ready for it. And you got to kill a Thoracle player before they got to Thoracle, so that's another plus.
I love that we're all so like scarred from stifle effects in our meta that we have to make sure we mention stifle in response to the Thoracle trigger post consult effect.
Bro.
Like no other like CDH group or whatever would even put a stifle on the table except as like a throwaway joke, but we're like, no, that seriously happens.
I've seen Trickbind 2 or 3 times in other like other groups, but yeah,
You don't see it. You don't see it as brought up as our group though.
That's true.
You don't play around it at
Alright.
other groups. You play around it here.
Oh,
That's
God,
true.
yeah.
That's so true. All right,
God,
they
you
might
ever-
have Stifle. They might have Trickbind. I'm going to Silence first.
Oh, I gotta tell you guys, I got my storm trigger on my Flusterstorm stifled the other day.
Oh, yeah.
baby.
Jesus, that feels.
Man,
How did that
man.
Force Spike feel?
oh, they paid right through. It didn't matter. Like it wasn't even like a good Flusterstorm. It was a waste your mana Flusterstorm. I still don't think the Trickbind mattered. Or no, I think it was just regular Stifle. I don't think it was Trickbind. But I went, Flusterstorm. I'm gonna have all copies target that, and they went, yeah. In response to the Trickbind, or in response to the Storm trigger, I'm like, oh my fucking god, it's happening.
Oh, that's wild. That's
No,
wild.
I don't know what it is about. I know what it is about us. In our play group that we're just like, yeah, like I don't know about you guys. Anytime I brew a blue deck, Trickbind's in the initial draft. It's one of the first few cards that get swapped out. But every single time I put Trickbind in there, because I'm like, this card's just gonna save my ass.
Well,
too
I'm
often.
still on the Stifle's not good train. I have been forever, but I was that way with Trickbind for a while, but I have come around. Trickbind, I do at this point at least grudgingly respect and play around in our locals.
I don't. If I lose to a trick bind, I deserve to lose to
It is one of the few things that scares me with like an Argothian Elder combo or just a big mana dork and a Quirion Ranger Ashaya combo. It's like they can trick bind my Argothian Elder or my other land untapper because that's not a mana ability, so I gotta be careful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a scary one right there. Gotta make sure that you're got like a redundancy or backup or something. Like,
Oh yeah.
Dosan. Play Dosan. Easy.
No, because I don't play on my turn, so Dosen isn't good.
Oh, right.
That is
That's
the
true.
antithesis to Yeva.
I don't know,
Easy sideboard card.
our Cormella player explained it to me. He's like, no, trick bind specifically is like a slower counter spell. Insofar as you can safely like bluff priority pass on like a stifleable thing, and then just get them so that way you bait out other people's interaction. And I'm like, that's actually a bit of solid politics tech that I didn't think of.
Yeah,
That is pretty
Yep.
neat.
Was waiting to the last
The
possible
absolute last possible second.
second.
Because
Or
like
triggers on the stack. You have an endurance? No. All right. Well, I guess I'll trick bite.
yeah.
There is one
It's-
more thing I
yeah.
want to talk about for step 1, step 2.
Mhm.
I think it's an interesting thing to see how it is in effect in tournament EDH versus just normal competitive EDH, and how the dynamics of a tournament change. Why step 1 and step 2 are important, and really show that.
Yeah. Why do you say? How do they change? Start with
Well,
that.
well, let's see. If you have like all the tournaments I've been to, if you look at the points that you are getting for round, you are getting a bunch of points for winning, whether it's 5 or 3, and then you usually get 1 point for a draw.
I think on average, yeah, it's 1 for draws.
So
Yeah.
and then 0 for losses. So
Yep.
it really highlights the fact that your goal is to step 1 at least make a draw, because that'll be more points than if you lose. And then ideally you want to get a win, because that'll be more points than anything else. So really focusing on that. Don't lose, play to my outs, maybe I can get to time, force a draw. Like, I'm just going to tutor for interaction on this last extra turn to make sure that you can't win, even if it means that I'm not winning. It still works, and it changes the dynamic a little bit from try to not lose until you can win to sometimes you just try to not lose.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I have definitely ID'd games before that are like in progress, and you're in the position of, well, I got 3 treasures, and you need those to dockside combo. But I know if we pass the turn, and I can crack these in response, but I know if I crack these and you don't win, we're passing into this other person who's already got a combo set up, and they're ready to win. So I, as the person who's controlling the treasures, I'm going to say, I am not cracking these treasures. Would you like to draw? And the person who's about to lose, who would win if the turn gets past them, says, I mean, I guess. And the person who's about to win says, well, I mean, I don't I don't really want to, because I'm going to win if you're not cracking those treasures. And I say, but I can crack these treasures, and if I do, then they win. Would you like to draw? And they're like, oh, okay. I mean, I guess. like you can force those draws using stuff like that, like mutually assured destruction. Great way to ID.
Yeah.
I cannot wait for the politics episode that we do. It's gonna be incredible.
Oh man, I like politics.
Yeah. At the last major, there was a person who basically tainted packed until they hit a force of will going into turns, and I said, fuck, I can't win through that. So I had my Wishclaw Talisman, and I grabbed and I said, okay, well, the Yuriko player who Doomsday probably is getting Thoracle. They might have backup. So I'm going to Wishclaw Talisman for Force of Will, and I'm going to say, hey, Yuriko, they got Force of Will. I'm telling you, I tutored for a Force of Will. Do you just want to draw and save the time? Because you're not winning. And who knew? I got the point for the draw, because the fourth player at the table was on 1 land and nothing else. So
mutually
they were like,
assured
yes,
destruction.
absolutely, I'll take it.
I'll take it as opposed to losing. Yeah.
Holy shit, that's so good.
Oh god.
and at the tournament before that, it was turns, and I had enough combat to kill. There was one person who had a bunch of like big beaters, 5/5s, whatever they were. There were 2 people who had just tried to combo. One person had Bomberman, and I had enough lethal to kill one person, but not the whole table. And I was the third turn of the pool, and I said, "Hey, you can kill us on the crackback. I can kill you now, but I can't kill everyone. So ideally, I would just kill you so that I draw. But we could also just all draw if you don't want to, like, because I can't kill everyone. So, but I can kill you, and I can make sure you don't win. And it's just saying, hey, you're not winning, so let's just draw. Is really strong in a tournament.
Absolutely. You're trying to eke out any advantage you can on those points.
But sometimes just drawing and only winning one game isn't necessarily good enough.
Or sometimes drawing 3 games is not good enough. Oh my god, that was sad.
Sit on the hardest bubble possible.
Yeah. Just waiting, you're waiting. Maybe somebody who's already in top seat will lose. That would be amazing. And then they don't, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I don't make the cut.
Or you just pray on your tiebreakers being really good.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like tiebreakers are... it's not that they aren't important. They are, but like I feel like in CDH they matter less than they do in 1v1.
Oh, yeah. No, I definitely agree. Just with the way tournament structure has basically coalesced to like I think most places have a pretty like standard procedure at this point.
Shout out to Eminence. Thank you all so
Yeah.
much.
Absolutely. Shout out to Eminence for really leading the way in like figuring out how to run this shit because damn is like 4-person free for all like one of the stupidest formats to like figure out brackets and tournaments for, especially one where time is so of the essence, both in the round and when time is actually called in the
Command
round.
Tower software. If you're planning to run a CDH tournament, look it up. It's like the best way to do it right now.
Yeah, bar none. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like I have step 1 and step 2 to pretty effectively today.
Step 1, step 2, yourself out. I think we've done a really good job covering like the ins and outs. I don't know if Jake had any last thoughts.
I think we covered it all pretty well. I got one last shout out. Step 1, a big part of step 1 is paying your taxes. Pay for Rhystic Study or wait for the Mystic Remora to die. I'm tired of losing to people who have drawn 15 cards off of Rhystic Study because people didn't pay their taxes. Thank you.
Alternatively, just feed the fish. Just feed the fish. Just lose, right? Yeah, if you're feeding the fish, you're just losing, and that's not a very good step 1 play. So just do it as long as I'm in control of it.
No, I'm definitely on the let the fish starve plan. I'm best friends with PETA in this scenario.
Oh man. Yeah, I think that is the single easiest thing to do for any player is I don't care how stacked your hand is. Just play your land, discard it for hand size if you need to, and pass. The only exception is if you're like playing a stacks piece that stops the person who has the fish and one other person. Like if you go like Land Crypt Drannith Magistrate, that is acceptable, but only then.
Or if you're playing your own fish and you're going to keep them in check with all your counter spells.
That's true too, I guess. But...
yeah, I think that's the only time where I like feeding a fish. I think back to all the times where I'm like, no, I need to feed him at least once because I need to like get forward. But that's usually in hands where like I really need to resolve this mana crypt if I want to cast any spell in the game. But even then, like I think back to those games, I'm like, was that really the best move?
Somebody spent the Rhystic Study once. We've lost.
Yeah, well, it's oh god, it's one of those. It's a psychological thing, right? Where someone goes, well, someone fed them once. Does that mean it's all right for me? No, it's never not all right for you. They just because they messed up doesn't mean you need to screw up even further for the day.
How bad can one more card possibly be, really?
I don't know. It depends on whose hand it's going into. If it's going into the other player's hand, have fun feeding them one card. It's going into your hand, Atlas.
Whoa! I only got 3 cards in hand. It's fine.
That is 3 cards too many.
This is really making me think about Heartwood Storyteller right now.
Oh, I love that card. I love that card.
The amount of time, Jake, how often has Heartwood Storyteller actually worked out in your favor? I think every time I have played you...
I can count times on one hand.
I don't know. Time I've seen that card resolve and I'm in a game with you, you don't win the game.
I feel pretty good about the card still. It's a nice... It's really political, and... I think even though it may not always lead to me winning. I do think it benefits me the most as the player who's playing the least non-creature spells, and in the mono green deck with very little card advantage in the command zone, I think it's a very strong piece to be running still.
I personally love to see it played because as a deck that can win at instant speed, I will happily stuff everyone's hands with non-creature spells and then let them fill my hands so I can win at instant speed. That's the biggest problem I've seen it run into is like someone feeds it and they're like, okay, pass turn. And then everyone benefits with the cards they've drawn, feeding the person who fed it first, and then they get to untap and win, or they have all the interaction to stop other people from taking any game actions to then win.
Yeah, it's a good example of step 1 and step 2 almost, because one player starts trying to go for a win, and everyone else then is able to stop them for a little bit, and then that leaves one person who held back a little bit able to finally go for the win when the window opens up. So I think I still have a lot of learning to do with playing that card. It's definitely going to have a high learning curve and a high ceiling. So I'm excited to play it more.
Well, I look forward
I'm
to.
excited. I'm excited to draw more cards when you play that card.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you play cards that draw me cards, and then seeing you improve with how to play Heartwood Storyteller. Well, thank you.
Because I definitely get the theory behind it, but it's a card that I can never fully put myself behind, you know?
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today, though, Jake. I think your insight on the step 1, step 2 thing's really been helpful. And shout out to you as the person who phrased it that way as step 1 and step 2. Don't lose, try to win. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a great time.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Jake. You are a player that has it has just been a personal joy of mine to see you progress into like a genuinely very talented player. I don't know how you necessarily view yourself, but you are one of the shining examples of our shop kind of, you know, giving chops to everybody who wants to get chops, you know. I think back to the first few days where you were playing Yeva and you were just like, you know what, screw this, I need to figure out something else. Basically since that point you have become an incredibly good Magic player and an incredibly good political opponent, and I am very excited to see you return to your roots and absolutely clobber me.
Thank you very much.
All right, have a good night, everybody.
All right, everybody, that is gonna do us for this episode of Mana on the Rocks. Want to thank my guests. I want to thank you, the listener, for joining us. Hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are. And peace out.